Good morning. I am Jason Bergert, the principal here at Pfeiffer-Burleigh. I wanted to welcome everyone and thank you for braving the weather to join us here today. On behalf of our district leadership, our school board, and the staff and students here at Pfeiffer-Burleigh, I'd like to give a special welcome to a few of our distinguished guests, most especially Governor Tom Wolf. Thank you for being here, Governor. I'd also like to recognize our local government officials and representatives from legislative offices. We also welcome Susan Spica, the Executive Director of Education Voters of Pennsylvania, and are grateful to see members of the Erie Education Association and some of our local principals here as well. We are here today to talk about the vital importance of investing in education, and there's no better place to do that than here at Pfeiffer-Burleigh, where we see the return on that investment daily. Please join me in welcoming a committed champion of public education and fair funding, Governor Tom Wolf. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Jason. And by the way, I keep saying this every time I come here. You know, I don't know what you're talking about this weather. It's really nice outside today. I mean, it is winter, you know. So spring's coming. But I appreciate all of you joining us, and thank you for having me here. It's great to be back in Erie. I am in my 8th year as governor. My last year in Pennsylvania, governors are limited to 2 terms, so I'm on my way out. But I'm really proud of what we've done over the last 7 years. So if you'll permit me just to brag a little bit, I'm going to leave office with a pretty hefty budget surplus. And when I got here, we were in the throes of 7 years ago is $2 to $3 billion budget surplus or a deficit. Now we have a surplus. I think we had $200,000 in the rainy day fund, which by my calculation was worth about 20 minutes worth of administration. We now have a $2.8 billion rainy day fund. It's the highest it's ever been. I apparently am going to be the first governor since Dick Thornburgh, I think in 1987, to turn over a budget surplus to my successor, whoever that is. So things are really moving in the right direction. And the reason we are in the position we're in is not because I've just cut and said we're just not going to spend anything. It's because I've actually invested money in things that make people's lives better and that's making our economy better. And chief among them is education. So that I have, it's true, proposed a big historic increase in education funding in this budget, because we have the wherewithal to do that without any tax increase. In fact, I want to reduce some taxes, but because that's what actually makes Pennsylvania more prosperous. We've invested over the last 7 years about $9 billion in 4 key categories: basic education, special education, Head Start, and pre-K. Those 4 areas account for about a 28% increase over the last 7 years in education funding. And I haven't done that in spite of the budget constraints that eternally exist. I did that for the same reason I did when I was in business. And that is, if you invest in the right things, you're going to grow your business. And that's what we're doing here. We're growing the Commonwealth by investing in education. Now, I'm not sure there's anything that a state government with a limited role in so many areas should invest in that's more important than education. And so that's what I ran on that when I first got here. I've been in politics for 7 years, that's it. But when I was in business, I invested in things that made my business grow. As governor, I've done the same thing, and it's worked. And Pennsylvania's in a better financial place now, I think, because we've set our kids up for success by investing in the schools like this, where they're going to learn fractions and geology. I was saying in Miss Wall's class, my younger daughter is a geologist, so it was really nice to just happen to walk in when you were teaching geology. And my daughter has benefited from the education she got in public schools and in college to become the geologist she is today. She has a great life and a great family as a result of all those things. Anyway, I'm proud to be a champion of public education. Thank you for saying that. You know, I am that, and I think that's really important. When I first got into this office, as I toured around the Commonwealth, the single theme that impressed me the most was that schools really needed help. I mean, I think we forget how bad things were 7 years ago. My predecessor had cut, what, $1 billion? Well, whatever you think, whoever was responsible, there was $1 billion less for schools to invest in their children and our children when I got here than there had been, 4 years before. And that really forced some terrible things, changes on our schools. And I vowed to actually turn that around, and I did. So the $1.9 billion that I've put into education already is a 7-year record. Last year was a single-year record. But if I can get anywhere close to what I'm asking for this year, that's going to blow all that stuff out of the water. I have done this in a way that I think is best for schools like Erie. Most of the funding that I'm proposing would go through the fair funding formula, which would really help Erie. But I'm also proposing that about $350 million, I think, of it would go through what's called Level Up, which would actually specifically target places like the Erie School District, even more than the fair funding formula does. So in both cases, I'm trying to make up for lost time. Pennsylvania, invests a lot of money between the local taxpayers and the state taxpayers in education. But the way we distributed those funds has not been fair. So we could have an argument, I think, over adequacy. I get that, and we ought to continue to do that. I would like to invest more in education than we invest, and I understand there's some good people on the other side who maybe think on average we're investing it, but I have not heard anybody argue that we're investing whatever it is we're investing fairly. So that places like the School District of Erie and a whole host of others across the Commonwealth get stiffed. And we need to change that. And so what I'm doing here is trying to change that with both the Level Up funding and the fair funding formula. I also think we need to make education conform to the environment that our students are going to work in. We need to do a better job with STEM education, with computer science education. I'm working with higher education, the state university systems and others, and the community colleges, to actually bring apprenticeship programs, dual enrollment programs together so that students can get a head start in school, in secondary school, on getting the certification or the degree, whatever it is they want to do in the post-secondary world, that we create opportunities here in Pennsylvania for that. In 2018, I launched the PA SMART program, and again, that introduced STEM and computer science programs into hundreds of schools around the Commonwealth. I'm also trying to bridge that gap between the classroom in any way I can and high-paying, well-paying jobs as people get out into the workplace. These are important things for anybody to do, and I think they're especially important here in Pennsylvania. I could not have done this without your support. I could not be where I am without your support. And it's really important that as I'm in this last year, that I think as you share, to the extent you share my passion for education, that we let our elected representatives know that and make sure that we push this, because this is a chance to actually get Pennsylvania to the point where I think we're beginning to invest adequately and much more fairly in our education process than we have in the past. So let's continue this. Let's make sure we're continuing to put resources back into our classrooms. Again, I understand you can't throw money at any problem and expect automatically to get a good outcome. On the other hand, you can't do what Pennsylvania used to do, and that is keep taking money away from something as important as this and expect that you're going to get a good outcome. That ain't going to happen. Did I just say ain't? Of all places in a library. It isn't going to happen. And so I recognize this is not sufficient to make our education system world-class in every school, in every place in the Commonwealth, but it is necessary. If we don't do this, we're not going to get to the place that we need these schools like this to get to make sure that our children and everybody, every citizen has a fair start in life to make the career choices and have the career successes that we all need them to have. So I am proud to be a champion of education. It's a life-changing investment for education that I'm proposing here. And I think to the extent we can all support that, it would be a great thing. So now I'm proud to turn this over to Superintendent Brian Polito, who is going to continue, I hope, supporting what I just said. So thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, Governor Wolf, and thank you for being with us here today. Erie's public schools and its students have been the very grateful beneficiaries of your commitment to increase funding for public education, a commitment that continues today with the investment outlined in your budget proposal. In shining a spotlight on the inequity that exists between the school districts of our Commonwealth, fighting for fair funding, and supporting the Level Up initiative, you have engaged us all in one of the most important conversations of today. The transformative power of purposeful, continued investment in education is evident in Erie's public schools every day. In the not-too-distant past, our district was teetering on the brink of insolvency, in the middle of a protracted financial crisis that forced us to close schools, eliminate positions, and reimagine every aspect of our operation. An infusion of $14 million in additional recurring state aid, which was granted in 2017, was critical in helping us stabilize our finances and helped us shift our focus to delivering the quality education our students deserve. In 2021, we also received $2.8 million through the Level Up initiative. Thanks to these investments, we were able to create and begin implementation of a multi-year district-wide facilities improvement plan that will ensure all our schools are warm, safe, and dry. We were able to upgrade curriculum and instructional materials that had not been updated or replaced in over 20 years. We were also able to increase academic supports for children that are not on grade level, giving our students the tools they need to succeed. More recently, a welcome and very necessary infusion of funds through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund has allowed us to expand our community schools model to all of our elementary and middle schools. We are also using these funds to implement a robust student support system and expand after-school and summer programming. Critically, this funding has also allowed us to lower our class sizes to 20 students or less at the elementary level. These non-recurring federal stimulus funds give us the ability to provide these necessary supports and interventions for the next 3 years only. Without the additional investment from the state, we will likely be forced to eliminate these supports when the federal funds are exhausted. These are supports that students and families in wealthier and better funded school districts take for granted. All of our students, including our most vulnerable, will suffer if these supports go away here in Erie School District. We've made great strides at Erie Public Schools, but as Governor Wolf recognizes, the gap between what our students deserve and what we're able to provide still exists. The educational playing field is not yet level for underfunded school districts like ours. And that's why it is crucial that we continue to fight for fair funding